Okay, so we've had a build for Willbender and Dragon Hunter, so let's finish it off with the Firebrand. Firebrand has got to be my main go-to when it comes to just about anything. The versatility available is just too good. Why settle for a slice of the cake if you can have the whole thing? So up front, I'll tell you, this build is for general open world play. You're not going to be soloing difficult content or falling into a specific set role. If you want that, I'd suggest checking out the meta builds for instanced content. What you'll find here is my general breakdown for the Firebrand that will set you up for success with generally anything out in the open world. Let's start with the gear. For weapons, the main set is the classic Axe Torch. This has all the damage you'll need, and we use bursting and smoldering sigils. Regardless of how you like to play, this set will let you turn on the jets and bring the big DPS when you need to. For the second set, most players just take Scepter, but I like to take something a bit more defensive, usually a staff, since it has great support capabilities. And being ranged, it allows you to withdraw from melee range if you need to. But some other picks could be Longbow, which is pretty fun with quickness, Hammer, also fun with quickness, and you could even go Greatsword. Whatever you choose, the second weapon is personal preference. The sigils will vary depending on what you go with. The standard is to just copy what you have on the first set. But for me on my staff, I'll go Concentration for more boon uptime and Strength for more might generation. As for the stats, we just take Celestial on everything. Firebrand can make use of all stats really well, so Celestial fits right into the build perfectly. When it comes to armor runes, I've got 3 options for you: Trapper, Firebrand, and Traveler. If you're interested in increased raw damage, just go with Trapper. If you want a balance between damage and boon generation, go with Firebrand. But if you're like me, you'll go with Traveler. Traveler is an all-stat bonus and a boon duration bonus, but most importantly, a move speed bonus. I've mentioned before how Guardian is slow. Firebrand might be the worst offender, so I'm willing to take a suboptimal rune in the interest of faster movement. The Relic will just go with Relic of the Fractal. It pairs really well with the bleeding that Axe will apply. Okay, let's talk about the traits, starting with Firebrand. You got a lot of choices you can make here, but my typical setup is top, middle, middle. I go with Unrelenting Criticism for the buff to Axe skills, but you could also take Archivist of Whispers to gain extra pages. That's fine too. In the middle slot, you can actually make an argument for any of these. I like to go with Stalwart Speed for extra quickness. But if I'm using a lot of mantras, I'll switch to Weighty Terms. You could also use Legendary Lore for the bonus boons when you're using tomes. And finally, we're pretty much always going to be taking Quickfire so we can keep the Justice passive at all times. The only time I've seen arguments for the other 2 traits is when you're trying to fill a set specific role, and in that case, you shouldn't be running this build anyway. Next up is Radiance. Radiance is a staple for any kind of Burning Guardian build. We're going to take the standard top, middle, top. Inner Fire for Fury generation, Radiant Fire for increased burning duration, a second charge of Zealot's Flame, and lower torch cooldowns, and finally Amplified Wrath for the big burning enhancements. Also, a shout out to the minor trait Renewed Justice that will recharge Virtue Skill 1 when you kill a foe. Very useful to Firebrand. And for the last trait line, it actually depends on your playstyle. Do you want a more damage focused playstyle or a more defensive focused one? If you prefer more damage, I'd recommend going with virtues. We'll go with bottom, bottom, top. Master of Consecrations will make consecration skills last longer. Glacial Heart triggers an ice blast every time you CC a foe. And Permeating Wrath, which is a big enhancement to the Justice passive. It will now trigger faster and trigger in an area. Also, special shout out to the minor trait Power of the Virtuous, which will give us bonus condition damage based on our vitality. If you want the defensive setup, you'll want to go with Honor. Honor brings a lot of might generation, boon generation, buffs to symbols, and just general sustain improvement. In Honor, we will take bottom, bottom, middle. Protector's Restoration will cast lesser symbol of protection when you use a healing skill. Empowering Might will grant might to yourself and nearby allies when you critically strike. And Writ of Persistence will increase the size of symbols, make them last longer, and heal those who stand in them. I actually find myself running the Honor variant a lot more these days. It seems to make for just a general easier time playing. Now, when it comes to skills, keep in mind this is a general open world build, so you can make an argument for just about any skills. But it's worth remembering there are many skills that will pair well with some of the traits you have to choose from. Considering that, what I usually go for is Mantra of Solace on the heal, The final charge will trigger stalwart speed and quickfire. On the utilities, Mantra of Potence for the quickness. This will also trigger quickfire. Purging Flames, this is for the burning damage, and it will last longer thanks to Master of Consecrations. Remember, it also cleanses Condies, so stand in it if you need cleanses. The final utility is a flex slot. I most often use Signet of Wrath, Stand Your Ground, or Mantra of Flame. If I do pick Mantra of Flame, then I make sure I switch to weighty terms. Since I'll be using all my Mantra charges, I'll get more value out of that trait. And on the elite, I go for Feel My Wrath. Firebrand really benefits from a lot of quickness, so any skill that can give us more is great. Although Signet of Courage is a good pick too, if you just want a lot of passive sustain. And actually even Mantra of Liberation if you want extra stun breaks. I mean, you could probably make an argument for any elite. Okay, now there is one more thing I want to touch on with Firebrand, and that's the tomes. I'm not going to break down every skill in the tomes for you, because I recommend you take a moment to read what every skill actually does and what the page cost is. That way you'll know what to use and when for any given situation. But I will just touch on a few skills that I think are noteworthy. On Tome of Justice, number 3 is an AoE pull. If running Virtues, this will trigger Glacial Heart. Number 5 will apply a powerful burning buff to allies, the same buff that you get from Quickfire. In Tome of Resolve, number 2 is a Condi cleanse. If you have no cleanses on your bar, make use of this when you need it. Number 4 is a big healing water field. Number 5 increases received healing and converts Condies to boons. But both 4 and 5 cost 2 pages, so keep that in mind if you have 5 pages total. Tome of Courage. Number 3 is a dome that reflects projectiles. Number 4 is a large resistance field and also a stun break. Very useful if you don't have a stun break on your bar. Number 5 is a huge defensive buff. It gives 300 bonus toughness, protection, stability, Aegis. It will also trigger stalwart speed and quickfire. Each of these, however, costs 2 pages each, so again, keep that in mind if you only have 5 pages total. Seriously though, if you haven't already, take a moment to read what every skill does. Okay, you don't want to be that guy that just spams their skills and doesn't even know what they do. Okay, well, that's going to pretty much bring the build to an end. This build should get you set up for success in generally any kind of open world content. You'll be able to deal damage, sustain yourself, maybe allies as well, provide important boons. You'll be a very nice person to have around in any party, just like me. People love having me around, alright? They flock to me when I run this build. Anyways, I hope this helped you out, or maybe you found it interesting. And thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I hope to see you in another one.